This is Marley from the Black Father Support Group, and welcome to another one of our weekly wrap-up sessions. Now's the first chance I've had time to actually put my thoughts to video. And it's around the subject of suicide. Another one of those subjects that, you know, people tend to not want to talk about, but it affects us as men. The thing is, what you find is that just after Christmas, there is a peak in suicides, and those suicides are predominantly men. So you'd have about a 70-30% ratio of suicides between men and women. The biggest reason for death for men between the ages of 35 and 50 in the UK is suicide. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that today was because of this story that came out in the Daily Mail a few days ago about a young man, a young father called Troy Simpson Joseph. Troy was married and he had 6 children. He was like 28 years old. He had a regular job. He was a bus driver, I think, or a tube driver. He was living over in southeast London, so not far from where I am. And just before Christmas, his wife said that, you know, she was ending the relationship. Doesn't say why. She's ending the relationship and he'll never see his children again. And literally 3-4 days later on, after attempting to try and see his children, Troy took his own life in Burgess Park, a park that I grew up playing in, just up the road from me. And it's so heartbreaking, because I was going to do this video just before the Christmas period to say, you know, just look out for yourself, don't let things get you down, stay around family if you're not seeing your children, go and push up yourself and other people if that's what you have to do, just to keep yourself from getting too down by the fact that you're not seeing your children. And lo and behold, this happens. In looking at this sad story, I started taking a bit more of an in-depth check as to what goes on in the mind of men who want to kill themselves, and was told to look up a guy called Professor Tom Joyner. Now, Professor Tom Joyner deals with suicides and the reason for suicides. And he said there was like this sweet spot, this area that you should be looking out for, where men are more likely to take their own life. And they were that you have a close proximity to death. What I've noticed over my years of going to the Black Father Support Group is that black people are surrounded by death constantly. Every week there's someone who's either just gone to a funeral, is about to go straight to a night afterwards, and is going to a funeral that following week. So you're surrounded by the macabre and death in the black community. And if that's not enough, in music that is pushed by record labels who have these black artists in their books, you know, especially like in hip hop, and also not so much now in dancehall, but it used to be a lot in dancehall as well, that, you know, the subject of murder and killing and death and so on was a big subject, a big thing. In our entertainment, especially that pushed by Hollywood, death is a big subject. Like when you look at all the main things that are out, you know, whether it be Star Wars, you know, you will see there will be the lightsaber or the laser gun, or there'll be, you know, even Peter Pan, the guy's got a gun on the front. death keeps on being pushed, and you're surrounded by it constantly and reminded about it. So, as a black man, when you've got those things prevalent around you, and you have, you're in a group, a subsection, i.e. men, and you're in an age bracket, like the age bracket I'm in, between 35 and 50, where this is something that is really, this becomes more and more like a thing you're willing to consider. The second area, or the second thing in this sweet spot, is feeling like a burden or unwanted. Troy was there, sitting there, no longer feeling needed or even wanted by his wife. She said that, you know, she doesn't want him in a relationship. She doesn't want to be in a relationship anymore. So now he's got two things, two strikes. The third one in this sweet spot, the final one that Professor what's his name, Tom Joyner said, was the thwarted sense of belonging. So basically it means that you feel like you belong somewhere, you feel like you're home, you feel like you're actually at home. You know, you have your children around, you have your wife there, you're going to work regularly, you're bringing money home. This is where you feel at peace and at ease. And from there, that is a thwarted area. No longer is that available to you. You're being kicked out with your stuff in bags. And you're there now in another place. For him, he went back to his mum's. He has that sense of belonging taken away from him. So now he has all three of those areas that this Professor Tom Joyner speaks about. Another thing that I noticed that was really interesting in the piece that was in the Daily Mail was that they said that the mother had tried to say that he had hit her, and it was his mum that had to say no, he didn't hit her. He was too busy with his hands full carrying all his worldly possessions out of the house that he had called home. And this is a slick trick that many of our wives, partners are pulling on dads, because the memo has gotten out that if you want to ensure that your man has no access to your children, the way you do it is by accusing them of violence, physical intimidation of you and or your children. Now, I didn't say you have to prove it, I said you have to accuse them of it. Reason being is that if that accusation comes up, that now has to be investigated by the courts. In my own personal situation, when I was accused of that, the judge expected me to be able to prove that I hadn't been violent. Now, how you prove that you hadn't hit someone is impossible, because the only person who can say, well, no, he didn't actually hit me, is the person who's accusing you of hitting them. There's no burden of proof. At the time, there was no burden of proof on my ex-wife to say, here is a picture of me with a bruise, or here is a police report of me going to the police because he had abused me, or whatever. Here is a picture of my son with a bruise on his arm, because they didn't need no burden of proof. Now they need a burden of proof. Now that's kind of slightly changed. So it's moved slightly in the favor of dad. But when she pulled that, I understand where that man was at, because I felt the exact same way. When I realized now I was no longer going to be able to see my sons, because I couldn't prove that I hadn't beaten my wife or beaten my sons. I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to take my own life, because it was like, what was the point of living if the reason for life, i.e. your two sons, have now been taken away from you? It's that serious. I get where that brother was at. And why I'm so passionate about this subject, and why I'm so passionate about the Black Father Support Group, is because the Black Father Support Group isn't a nice to have. The Black Father Support Group isn't something that you wait to go to when you're at the point of crisis. The Black Father Support Group is something that every black man, whether you are a father or not, needs to come to. If you don't live in Southeast London, or you are busy every Wednesday and you can't come along to the Black Father Support Group over in Brockley, you need to set up a Black Father Support Group. We're happy to work with any black man who's willing and able to set up a group in his area. You know, we'll help you with finding a spot. We'll help you with, you know, funding to get you set up. We'll help you with getting the word out in your area, because this thing is needed. What that guy needed at the when he was thinking about killing himself, instead of him just taking his pills and going to Burgess Park, is he needed to have a father on the other end of the line that he could talk to say, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Because maybe he would have called me, and maybe I would have been able to tell him, look, I know exactly what you're going through, and I know that if you do that, you will never see your children will never have the chance to know you. You ruin their life in your action that you want to take against yourself. The support group is there for a reason, and we need to now start understanding that when we get together and we talk and we start to share those issues, then that becomes a burden off of your own shoulders that you don't have to hold by yourself. When you have a group of 10 men who are helping to shoulder your burdens, that lightens the load up for you. You can stand up a little taller. You can start feeling a bit stronger about yourself. You could deal with those trifling sisters who want to take away your children, who want to take away the one thing that you could look at and say, well, this is a legacy. This is something that I should work towards. This is something that I want to actually improve upon. I could say more, but I don't want to anymore. I'm really sorry for those children. And shame on that sister who decided that she was going to take that course of action. Shame on you. Because unless that man was sexually or physically abusing those children, and there's no talk of that anywhere, unless that man was physically or sexually abusing those children, you have no right, no human right, to then take those children away from you, to use the government as a beating stick to ruin and end his life. Shame on you. This is Marty from the Black Father Support Group. Get in contact. Come onto our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/BFSG UK. That's Black Father Support Group UK. Join us. Start talking with us. If you need to set up a group, we'll help you. If you need to come to the group, we usually take 2 weeks off in January. We're starting a week early. We're going to be back on the first week of January because it's that serious. Get yourself down to the group. If you have plans on Wednesday, change them. Come down to the group. If it's too far, take a tube, take a train, come down. I'll see you soon. This is Marty from the Black Father Support Group signing off. Peace.